Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep,
Okay,
we can hear you.
awesome. Well, thank you guys. Thank you all for the opportunity of allowing me to speak before you today. I'm excited to partner with you and definitely to meet a lot of you all alumni and fellow students who happen to be joining us today. My name is Tiara Cloud, and I'm going to be sharing along the lines of fine tuning your brand, balancing business and tech where faith is the mandate. So I'll be sharing a little bit about the branding aspect, probably a little bit more. That's part of my passion. And then, of course, communications is kind of intertwined in there as well. But yes, I'm Tiara Cloud. I am definitely passionate about encouraging individuals to pursue their God given talents, their gifts, and their abilities for such a time. I'm actually also an author of a book called Cracked Mirrors, and it's about allowing God to destroy the negative self images in your life. Because everything in our lives, for the most part, as far as how we reply to situations and, you know, how life affects us, period, has a lot to do with our self image. And if we see ourselves the way that God does. And so, all of my life, I feel like God has kind of had me in a position where images, whether it's visual or self images, like it's at the forefront. So I always think it's funny. My first degree was in graphic arts, 2004. That's where I got my degree from. So I've always liked the arts and everything like that. But I believe that God loves each of us, and He really wants us to see ourselves the way that He does so that we can walk out the divine purpose that He has for our lives. Um, as you can already see there, I just recently got my degree from Liberty, yay, in strategic communications. Got a master's this past August, and it kind of has walked hand in hand and really helped with a lot of the things that I've done professionally with my business. My business is Anayah Graphics, as well as I've served with a ministry for going on almost 14 years now. And so it's been really cool to be able to see kind of both aspects of business, like the business world, and then even working in a ministry, there's a business aspect to that as well. And so I believe that it has helped me to, as the speaker just kind of shared on, to kind of be on the P's and Q's, because sometimes we can let things slip, just period, just people, period, or believers, period. And to make sure that the image that we represent in our personal lives, professionally or business wise, is one that's going to represent Christ well, because people are watching, right? Um, let's see here. I've already kind of shared a little bit about my background, also working as a marketing director at the church, at my church, Victory Christian Center. Um, and I do pretty much a little bit of everything from design to communications to PR to videography. And I also use those skills in my business as well. So it's been very beneficial to be able to kind of, as I said before, or see a little bit of both. Also do voiceover work, so a little bit of everything. Sometimes when you're in ministry, you just serve wherever you can. All right. As I said before, my business is called Anayah Graphics, and so we offer compelling creative solutions to brands who are seeking quality design, strategic communication, or strategic consulting, and effective social media management. As I said before, I like the arts, but I also like to help small businesses or organizations, whatever the structure of the business is, kind of develop their why, find out their purpose, because it is extremely important that you know your why and you have a story. And that's going to be important in business as well as our personal lives when we talk about our personal brand. And so one of the things that Anayah Graphic does is we offer brand development, print advertising, web design, landing page design, and creative consulting to businesses. These are just a few projects. So it's a little bit of everything from print design to social media management, as well as graphic arts. And I already mentioned as well, web design is too. So moving on to this conference. So how does all of that apply to today and what we're talking about? So the name of this particular session is Fine-Tuning Your Brand, Balancing Business and Tech Where Faith is the Mandate. And so, as you can see, every business must properly leverage a powerful brand story. And we'll talk a little bit later about exactly what a brand story is. But in order to distinguish itself from the competition and the world around us, we have to be able to fine tune that story so that people know our why. They know, hey, why do I want to use your service or your business? Why do I want to go to your ministry versus the one up the street? And so it's important to be able to paint, articulate an accurate brand story. So letting everyone know about your why, what you stand for, what distinguishes you, your unique value proposition. It's kind of a marketing term, but like, what is it that makes you different? That's basically what our prospects or our customers kind of want to know. So in order to do that, it's just important that you leverage all of the tools, especially if you're in business, that you have. And so if you're using social media, it's free, but just making sure, hey, do the aesthetics on my account, does it accurately represent the quality of the business to my target audience? And so that's a little bit about the actual session and kind of what we'll be talking about. I'll also be kind of sharing a little bit on just a few tips and things to be aware of as a business owner, things that you can do that, you know, it's not really complex, but they're things that the consumer or the customer will notice right away. So moving on in. So this is, hopefully you all have access to your chat. It's kind of like an icebreaker here. Name that brand. And so of the slogan, I'll just try to see who responds the fastest on here. Of these logos on here, you can drop the name of the brand in the chat just to see how easily you recognize the brand and their tagline. So the first one is Eat Fresh. You can drop it in the chat. Let's see who recognizes that brand. Derek, he got it right. Oh, no, let's see who got it first. Okay, Ben. Ben got it first. Yes, you all love some Subway. Okay, the next one is, this one may have two taglines that you kind of remember. The happiest place on earth, or you may have heard Imagine More. Disney. Wow, you're on it, Derek. Okay. All of you guys. Yay. Cool. That's what I like. Let's see who gets that one first. This is an older brand. It's been, there you go. Evan got it. Pepsi. I was going to say some people may not be as familiar with that specific brand because you don't hear it as much as how they used to push it with their marketing. Let's see. Think different. Apple. There you go again. Awesome. This one should be easier if you just look at the image. Go Greyhound and leave the driving to us.
Okay, this isn't fair. I can't get to my chat.
Uh-oh.
I'm just,
It's okay.
no, this is fun. Sorry.
Let's see. Home to a Deeper Clean. This is another brand that's been around for a while. Gillette. Okay. Bissell. There we go. Bissell is the answer. Okay. And the best a man can get. Gillette. Okay, I was gonna say the men would know that. Um, bet you can't eat just one. Lay's. And so you can see here, like just by saying the expression, you have the logos here as a kind of cheat sheet. You're fully aware of who these brands are because they impact you. You intersect with them on a regular basis. Um, let's see what else we got. You know, one of them that I left off on here would be BMW. Can anyone tell me what that actual tagline is in the chat? If not, it's okay. Very close, Mark. The ultimate driving machine. So normally, like, we hear this at the end of commercials and things like that, and we don't even realize how many times we actually intersect with slogans, with things like that, with logos that impact us, sometimes subconsciously. And so I think just a fun little exercise. I love dealing with brands and things like that. I think it would be really helpful, because it's been helpful to me, is to just think about, okay, on a daily basis, how many times am I intersecting with the brands that are around me? On some occasions, you'll notice, you'll be talking about a particular brand. It just happened to me yesterday, and it pops up on the TV. So that's letting you know how diligent businesses and other companies, organizations, nonprofits and for-profits are about making the connection with the consumer. They're going out of the way. I mean, of course, there's microphones even in our tablets and our mobile devices now. They can pick up on the audio, and you may see a commercial when you're sitting there. And so that just lets you know they're diligent about intersecting with you. You're their prospective client. And as far as believers are concerned, whether we're talking about in our personal businesses or in ministry, it's just very important for us to take the same stance, to be able to utilize tech for our advantage as well, and to be able to educate ourselves on the different tools that that we have access to. Some of them are free. And a lot of times we kind of take it for granted, like, oh, they'll just come because we're a good organization. And that's not necessarily the case. I love the verse that the speaker, the video right before me, that he mentioned, and he was talking about how sometimes those that are in the world, they are more savvy. They're taking advantage of the different tools and everything like that around them than the children of God. And that shouldn't be. That shouldn't be. One of the books, I have a little workshop that I do off and on, and talking about properly structuring your business. And I would just recommend this book to anybody. Anyone heard of Larry Burkett? He's been around for a while. Of course, he's passed, but his materials, they really still live on. Powerful book, Business by the Book, and I just recommend that for you, because it really breaks down, whether it's in the workplace or in your business, just things that you can do to distinguish yourself as a believer. Because yes, we're talking about brands and things here, but it goes deeper than that when it comes to representing Christ. Sometimes it's the way we treat each other, the way that we handle things ethically in the workplace, that actually helps to build our brand. And so just moving right along, see here. So when you're thinking about developing your brand, we have to ask ourselves, is perception reality? Because sometimes, and you all can respond in the chat if you had this experience, sometimes what we think about ourselves, or what others maybe even around us may think about themselves as a business, or maybe it's themselves, a personal brand, is different than what other people see. So they may think that they are on one caliber, but the public may see them differently. And a lot of times that's based on a couple of these things, like that I have on the bottom. I'm sorry, can barely see that on my screen now. So what people know, like, what do people know about your brand? Sometimes they may not select your brand, meaning your business, and again, this is nonprofit or for profit, because they are just completely aware of the services that you provide. So when you're posting on social media, when you're posting on websites, when you're investing as far as advertising space and things like that, that's very important for us to think about, is what type of information are we putting out, so that our prospective customers or prospects, I'll say it both ways in the next 15 minutes, what are we putting out there for them to get to know us? And then the second thing is what people perceive about your brand. Sometimes what they perceive may be completely different, than what your business represents. And so we kind of have some work cut out for us when we look at it that way. And the last thing we have is what you share about your brand to others. What are you sharing, and does it actually match up with the services that you're providing. Okay. So your brand story, this is just a quote, Steven Spielberg. People have forgotten how to tell a story. Stories don't have a middle and or an end anymore. They usually have a beginning that never stops beginning. So basically what he's saying by that slogan is people are trying to communicate, and it may not necessarily be, let's not even think on a larger scale of what you see on TV. Think about a business, maybe locally, that you know. Do you really know who that company is? Are they really, or have they communicated their whole story? Like, how did you come about in the city of, I'm in Charlotte. How did you come about in the city of Charlotte? Like, what brought you here? Like, what were the passions that caused you to launch out into this particular business? And a lot of times we end up kind of shooting ourselves in the foot because we do not take the time to tell the story. Sometimes we may think that people are not interested. But since the beginning of time, even when Jesus was walking the earth, through parables, you can see he calls people to gravitate to it. He used parables to communicate a message. And the same is true today. You may think, hey, my story's not interesting. No one wants to know. But that's one of the most powerful tools that you have as a business owner, or even as an organization if you're working for a nonprofit. What is your story? What is your why? How did you come about? Okay, so our goal is to build a connection with our prospects. Prospects just means prospective consumer or your prospective customer. And so we want to make sure that we're fine tuning whatever type of advertisements or marketing materials that we have about our organization that are out there. We want to build a connection with them. One of the things that we can do to build a connection is to find the common ground that we have with our target audience. And our target audience is just those individuals that we feel would be most benefited, or would benefit the most, I'll say, by our products or our services. And so that's going to actually involve us having to do research. One of the things that we can do as far as branding goes is build and maintain brand awareness and interest. And so that may be your website, that may be your social media page, that may be boosting an ad that you have on social media. So you can actually increase your exposure to individuals who may not be aware of who you are or what services are that you're asking. Develop and enhance attitudes toward the company, product, or service. We kind of talked about that before, but making sure you explain your why, your story, let them know what it is you're offering and how it's going to benefit them. That's really what people want to know. Build and foster relationships between the consumer, which is like your prospect, and the brand. And the brand identity consists of the combination of your name, your logo, and symbols, your tagline, your design, how you look to the public. Sometimes when we think about a brand, you may hear people just think of a logo like that's it. But again, it has a lot to do about what a customer may think about you or even say about you when you're not in the room. When there's no other influences, what is the overall feeling that you may have about that particular brand? Is it a brand that you trust? Is it a brand that automatically when you hear their name, it's like, I don't know if I can trust them, or, their services in the past haven't been that good. They haven't honored their word as far as when they're going to show up. These are things we can do to kind of fine tune our brand. As far as our customers, and again, if you're working for a nonprofit, it's the exact same thing. Like, what is the image that you're putting out there about the organization? Okay. And so discover your competitive advantage. Has anyone, you can drop it in the chat, but has anyone heard of competitive advantage? I will wait. Nobody? Well, competitive advantage is really just kind of what sets you apart from your competition. The name kind of says it all right there. So if you have a business already or you're a nonprofit, it's the exact same thing. Like, what would make me choose your business or your organization over the competition? What is it that you offer that's going to set you apart? Is it your price? Is it the quality of your brand? Is it the way that you make me feel when I come into your establishment, and the way you talk and hype me up or whatever? Those are all things that contribute to what gives you an advantage over your competition. But the very first step is knowing who your audience is. And so the very first thing you're going to need to do is research that ideal customer, the ideal client that you have. And then just actually thinking, digging even deeper, like, what is my audience's issues? Like, what are their problems? Do they have, let's say we're talking about Downey, do they have stinky clothes and they want to freshen them up? Like, their problem is the clothes are stinky. So I'm helping to solve a problem by offering Downy sheets to put in the dryer to make them smell better. That's a simple example, but that's definitely what a competitive advantage is. It's like, okay, I know my audience, I know what their issues are, and so all of the verbiage, all of the wording that we use in our communications are going to be words that are targeted towards them. You know, I am here to help you get rid of your stinky clothes. I'm making this totally up, but this is exactly what advertisers and marketers do on a regular basis. They study their clients. They use the time that they have to actually research their customer in depth, and then they invest the money as far as advertising and things. They don't just throw billions of dollars out there. They've studied who their target audience is. Okay. Any questions in the chat? I'll be looking at that. If you have any questions, you can drop it right there. As you develop your slogan or your tagline for your business, we kind of went through that exercise not too long ago. You have to really, as I said before, research your target audience, find out what need it is that you're providing for them, and then figure out, as far as your brand, like, what is your story? What is a very small and concise statement that is going to tell them who I am and what it is that I'm offering that's going to benefit them. And I see that I'm kind of running out of time, so I'm going to speed up a little bit here. Okay. So just branding tips. How many have heard of a style guide before? Would you share your book link? I sure will. Yes, we use them at work, definitely. Okay, I see 2 questions here. Before I talk about a style guide, I'll try to answer Mark. You mentioned telling your story. How do you weave pieces of your faith into that? Your story may be the only message of faith that they hear. That's a very good question. What type of, well, I won't ask you unless you're comfortable sharing. I think a lot has to do with the type of business that you have. When you're working in an organization where faith is the mandate, for lack of better words, like, for example, I also serve at a ministry. It's obviously a little easier for me to communicate. Our ministry's tagline is touching and changing lives for the glory of God. It's easy to communicate that to that audience, and that because that's what they're expecting as a church, a Christian ministry. But when we're thinking about communicating in the world, I think it's very important to seek God. It may sound spiritual or whatever, or religious, but seek God's direction as far as a balance, because we are still reaching out to the world. So we don't want it to be overly biblical where they're confused about what it is you're offering and whether that actually is going to be able to meet their needs. But it needs to be accurate in terms of your individual story. So, Mark, what type of business, if you don't mind sharing, you can drop it in the chat. What type of business is it that you are referring to? Is it one that's more ministry based? Okay. I work in a very large commercial environment with over 300,000 employees, but I do this every day, sometimes subtle and sometimes not so much. Well, I think, yeah, you kind of answer your own question there. I think it's very important for us as believers in any profession, but definitely when we're talking about communication, marketing, and tech and things like that, to be able to inject our faith all of the time. Maybe not all of the time where it's like overly like we're witnessing or sharing the gospel and we're supposed to be working and things like that. But a lot of times, if people know that you care about them and then they see what it is that you're offering, then they'll care about what it is that you have to say. So there may be policies in place in a secular work environment where you may not be able to share your faith as clearly, but sometimes the quality of your work, and I've experienced this actually with clients, sometimes the quality of your work or how hard you advocate for your clients, a lot of times they may not be used to that in the secular arena, and that alone will open up the door for you to be able to inject your faith. Like, okay, well, what is it that's different about you? You know, because normally people don't care, or normally they try to overcharge me and act like I don't know. So I just think it's important to be able to just inject it and weave it in and out as you get the opportunity. Um, if you're in a secular environment, like I said, I think it's extremely important to be aware of rules, if there are any in place as far as you sharing your faith. But I think your gifts will make room for you. And it's not just from the standpoint of us profiting monetarily sometimes. Sometimes it is your gifts actually make room for you to share the gospel, you know. I hope I made sense there. It is, if it's Christian, it ought to be better. That's exactly right. That's definitely exactly right. And no problem, Mark. But yeah, that's been my experience, and I'm sure you all have had similar experiences. But when we are believers, you know, we have a mandate to be able to have the best quality, whatever it is out there, or at least we should be trying in whatever it is that we're doing. I have 3 minutes, so I'm going to share really quick. For those of you guys who may not be aware of what it is, a style guide used to be called a brand Bible a long time ago. These are just tips as far as fine tuning your brand wherever you are, no matter what stage, like making sure these items are in check. A brand Bible used to be basically a guidebook that corporations used to have, and that's before there was a pushback as far as the Bible and the gospel being out there. But they literally called it a brand Bible because companies knew, like, okay, this is the color we use, this is the PMS shade we use, these are the fonts that we use, and there's no straying away from it. And it's amazing to me to just look at how our society has changed over time. And so, of course, it's called a style guide now, but it really helps with the quality, how your business looks to the public. If you have 15 different shades of yellow and purples and greens, and you keep changing them out, a lot of times it gives an impression of a lack of quality and consistency. And so a style guide or a style Bible is something that is in place to kind of keep everything cohesive with your brand. And so if you don't have a designer that's already in place or someone working with your brand, that is one thing that I would recommend because it kind of keeps everything intact. Those rules still apply. Yes, they definitely do. And then other tip that I had on here is just minimizing your font selection. All this is normally in your style guide. It tells you your font choices. It tells you the colors that you can use. And then it also, after your logo has been designed, that it shows you like, hey, you can't stretch that horizontally. You have to stretch it in proportion. So these are just a few tips and things like that that we can, as believers, as business owners, or even if it's in a nonprofit sector, be aware of as far as cohesiveness, because this really shows the public what quality of a brand that it is out there. And then as a result of the quality, you draw in the customers, you have an opportunity to share your faith, to make an impact on the world around you. Those rules still apply. They definitely do. Um, And so the last thing I had on here is just leveraging social media, just trying to think of ways, different things that you can do if you're a business owner, things that you can do to put your business out there, to tell your unique story, how you started, what it is that you offer that's helping your target audience, things like that. Once you get that together, then you take advantage of the tools that are free. A lot of these tools are free. You can make sure your website is using a style guide as well. A lot of them already have that in place. And then anything you put out on social media, making sure that your message is properly representing what it is that you're saying that you're standing for, and then also making sure that it's cohesive and everything. It's 10:45. Is that my time?
Yeah, but you have a few minutes. I mean, if you want to finish up, go ahead.
Okay. Well, these are just a few social media channels, and one of the things I would say has helped me and that I endeavor to help my clients with, it's not feeling like you have to be on every social media channel. Based on who your prospective client is, the audience that you're trying to reach, you may not need to be on TikTok and Facebook and Twitch and all of these Discord and everything like that. Maybe your clients, your target audience is on LinkedIn. So choose LinkedIn and maybe Instagram because it's more pictorial based. Facebook maybe because the average audience may be a higher age, and you have to actually do your homework to say, hey, who are these individuals that I would like to impact through my business, and as a result, let that dictate how you put your information out as far as your brand story, as far as your product offerings, and just how you connect with them in general. I would say that helps you, one, also to be a little bit more focused about what it is you're putting out versus wasting your time just trying to be everywhere. Sometimes when we stretch ourselves thin, the quality diminishes and we're not really as impactful as we desire to be. And that's pretty much it. I can answer any questions if it's okay.
Okay, so
Thank you.
what is Twitch?
Twitch is, I would say most business owners are not really even there, but you see some gamers out there, different things like that. And so sometimes they may, if their target audience is there in that particular arena, that's where they put their information out. So Twitch is kind of like I don't want to call it an underground YouTube, but it's a social media platform kind of like that. But you'll see video there, you'll see games there, and things like that. But it's a more detailed like community. It's a smaller type community like your YouTube, completely different. And so you have a variety of businesses that may be, I don't want to say more cutting edge, but just if it may be more cultural as far as like a niche audience that they're trying to reach. It could be basketball, like I said, it can be gaming, it can be a podcast that talks about like a specific topic. That's just it's a whole lot more condensed than YouTube. So sometimes people flourish in that particular environment, but you have to really know who it is you're trying to reach because your audience may not be there at all.
Yeah, and the video earlier from Dave Purdy, he said the older generation with Facebook. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm really getting old. No, this was great, and I forgot to check with the presenters if they'll share their slide decks afterwards. So if you don't
Okay,
mind
sure.
passing that on as well, we'll post it.
Okay, sure. Definitely.
Any
My
more
kids know of
questions?
Twitch.
I have no idea. I'm gonna have to look it up.
Yeah, there's so many apps out there now, but and then of course WhatsApp. People also, I didn't have that on there, but people use WhatsApp as well for business. So it just kind of depends on where your audience is. Any more questions?
Okay, well,
All
I'll go
right.
ahead and
Thank you.
thank you for sharing. This was really helpful. And again, your presentation and your book recommendations and link too would be great.
Okay.